While two top Democrats on the Hill were resigning this week over sexual misconduct allegations, President Trump created a media furor by endorsing Alabama's Republican Senate candidate and touting him Friday night at a Florida rally.
And we want jobs, jobs, jobs. So get out and vote for Roy Moore.
Moore has denied sexual harassment and assault allegations from 9 different women, most of whom say he pursued them when they were teenagers. And Molly, Trump had been implicitly backing Roy Moore by beating up on Doug Jones, his liberal Democratic opponent. But once he made an official endorsement, man, the media tried to hang those 9 female accusers around the president's neck.
Sure. And one of the things that was interesting was that the New York Times actually said like a week or two ago that Trump had endorsed Moore, and that wasn't actually true, which kind of made it less impactful when he finally did endorse Moore. It seemed like that had already been the media narrative going forward. But just in general, this race seems to be a rewrite of 2016, where everybody in D.C. and the political and media establishments agree that Republican voters in Alabama should voluntarily turn over a seat because of serious 40-year-old allegations of sexual misconduct. And I'm not sure that that's going to match the reality on the ground, and I'm not sure we're seeing good media coverage of what issues actually motivate the Alabama voter, how they're making their decisions. It just seems very much like a similar thing of being out of touch with the dynamics.
Right, nobody's outside Alabama seem to think there are any other issues except this. But even the conservative Wall Street Journal editorial page called on the president to disavow Roy Moore. Right. But the press is essentially casting them as this as Trump doesn't believe the women, the 9 different women, as opposed to it's politics and he wants the Republican to win.
Well, I think it's both for Donald Trump, because he doesn't believe the 16 women who have said that he sexually harassed them, and he doesn't believe the 9 who are saying about Roy Moore. And voters in Alabama don't either. The Washington Post poll showed 71% of Republican voters in Alabama don't believe the charges, and 63% of Trump voters in Alabama didn't believe the charges against him. You know, with the issues with media reporting, and when you find holes in a story, people are just looking for their hook. They're looking for the moment that they can say the whole thing is made up because there was an added date, right? Beverly Young Nelson. She added the date and the location, so the whole thing is a lie, and Roy Moore is innocent.
Let's talk about that. So Beverly Young Nelson is one of the 9 accusers. She's the one who's represented by Gloria Allred, and it turns out she's acknowledged that in this signing of her high school yearbook, which showed she had some relationship with Roy Moore at least, she had added the date and the place, and that does muddy the waters. Is it a big deal?
I don't think it's that big a deal. I also think this whole thing about when did the president endorse Roy Moore? The minute the primary was over, he said Roy Moore was going to make a great senator.
But no, the first statement was, if these allegations are true, Judge Moore should step aside.
But before the allegations, he had already talked about Roy Moore being great. In other words, he made it very clear he was going to endorse whoever won the primary.
Just let me mention that on this Beverly Young Nelson business, Fox News' website made a significant error by posting this. Roy Moore accuser admits she forged part of yearbook inscription attributed to Alabama Senate candidate. And that was corrected with an editor's note. But you're right that, people seize on it. But at the same time, CNN aired an interview with a friend of Lee Kaufman. She's the one who says that she was sexually accosted by Roy Moore when she was 14. Friend who told her at the time. It seemed like a very credible interview. And so the question is what's fair and what's not fair here for journalists trying to sort through this.
Also, I mean, part of the definition of forgery is altering a legitimate document and presenting it as original. And I did watch her statement where she read what he wrote, and she included the parts that she added. So it's a tricky situation, but it's why when we just list the numbers of accusers, like happens with Franken. Oh, he has this many accusers, and some of them are putting a hand on the waist, and some are leaning in and not getting a kiss. This is why it would be better to have a little bit more discipline about how we talk about these. I mean, there are very serious allegations with Moore, namely involving a 14-year-old, and then there are other things that are a little bit muddier. So we should be careful as media people to be accurate and not overstate what's going on and not hype it up, because then it is easy to discredit things when there are holes in other people's stories.
And I'll tell you what the big problem is. There is no such thing as the media. There's conservative media, there's liberal media, there's media that has a partisan agenda, and so everybody's approaching this in a different way.
Right. On this Roy Moore race, the Washington Post has published many of these allegations and has investigated them and talked to people and friends. The Alabama news organizations have done it as well. So you're right, though, and then there was the attempt to have a false allegation peddled to the Washington Post about Roy Moore, which the Post exposed. But as far as the press bringing back the story about of the accusers of Donald Trump, which he denies and has called them liars, Sarah Huckabee Sanders has nothing to see here because the president addressed that during the campaign and the voters addressed it, she said. So because he won the election, the press should no longer question it?
Absolutely not. The press should continue until, our last dying day, investigating as much as they possibly can. But they need to be fair, and you're right. I mean, people people, we go to a specific outlet for our fix. And the issue of language, which you bring up, is so important here, because I make sure that every time I discuss Roy Moore to say an alleged child molester, but I still get maligned for calling him a child molester.
But there is an issue here, which is
half a minute.
Well, we know we wouldn't be having this conversation if Hillary Clinton had put Bill Clinton back in the White House. We know we wouldn't be having Al Franken leave because it would be too close to home for the Clinton presidency. So I think there is an aspect here where people kind of see through it. They see this is partly a partisan motivation and that it wouldn't be happening. And it didn't happen all last year, in part because Hillary Clinton's husband is Bill Clinton, who is a credibly alleged rapist.
I think Bill Clinton was less of a factor in what happened last year.
All right, but in fairness, there has been some revisiting, including among some liberal commentators who said, you know, I went easy on Bill Clinton in 1998. I was wrong. He was wrong. And
yes,
he wouldn't get a pass today.
All right, fair point. Molly Hemingway, Mara Elias, and Jessica Tarlov, thanks very much.